Everybody, and welcome back to Fresh Set. I'm Sabrina.
And I'm Kevin. So today's episode, we're going to go through the 2023 F1 season, review, recap, whatever you want to call it. Just kind of, what we thought, what we saw as mediocre analysts to the sport and fairly new.
I think we're professionals.
I think we're, well, we don't act like it, but I think we do have valid opinions.
Valid to each other.
Valid, yeah, at least to ourselves.
Anybody else thinks it's valid.
Maybe not historically.
Yeah.
Because nobody else has heard it.
Yeah.
So
we're off to a great start.
Yeah, no kidding. It's just my self-deprecating humor. So figured we'd start with, it's easy to get this one right out of the way. So we don't have to go back over it. Max and Red Bull.
The obvious.
Yeah.
The obvious place to start, and basically what 2023 was all about was just Max, Red Bull.
I mean,
Carlos.
What can we say?
And then Max for the rest of the season.
Yeah. What can you say about it? I mean, he broke how many records?
His own
records.
Everybody else's
he broke the single season wins record, laps led.
Yeah.
He basically won the whole season.
Yeah.
By himself, because if he actually took away Checo's points, he still wins.
Yeah. He's just, I think the last episode we talked about that he's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that you as much as people want to hate him, you can't. Like, he's just so good.
Yeah.
You can hate him, but...
Oh, I'm sure people do. Everybody says that it was such a boring season because he was winning. And we'll talk about it in the rest of the episode, but other than Max being in first every race, except for the first two and then Singapore, which is kind of the bookend of the end of the summer or whatever it was.
Yeah.
There was a couple times. I think there was Australia. He came back from. It was Australia. Yeah, it was Australia. He came back from a 15th.
14,
something like that,
15.
To win. Yes, it's the car, but it's also him being able to drive it on the limit, right?
Yeah.
Even if the overtakes were pretty easy in a straight, because I was actually, like I said, I was rewatching Australia, and as soon as he got in a straight, it didn't matter how far the other person was. He was just blowing by them.
And he just goes for it.
Yeah.
Like, other drivers are a little bit more cautious. Like, they'll go up and then stop, and he's like, no, this is my corner.
He just bullies his way through, and it's just like, which is easy when you don't have to be worrying about who's ahead of the apex, because it's him.
Right. It's always
him. And he finished every race.
Yeah.
Because nobody was around to catch him.
Another record.
There were a couple of times where, people, you saw it at the end of the year, at the back half of the year, where other cars were, I don't want to say catching up. They were improving. Yeah. So his gaps weren't, 30 seconds, 25 seconds, 19 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was now 12. Just
16.
A close 12. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the easy one. It was the almost perfect season.
Yeah.
And I'll say almost, because he did win every race. People like to throw in that he didn't win every sprint race, which I don't consider the sprints a race.
I don't think he considers them.
No, he certainly doesn't.
Either.
No. I hate that when he says, he won everything but one race.
Yeah.
It was a 19 lap race, I think it was, sprint race. Or
the
22.
Oscar
Yeah,
won?
the one
Yeah,
Oscar
19,
won.
yeah.
19 or 22. You give Max an extra 5 laps and he passes.
Exactly.
So, okay. He won every race.
Yeah, he basically won every race.
It wasn't exactly perfect. He didn't always qualify the best. He mostly did. Unless you're Charles or Checo, or I think in the first couple, I think even Alonso had a P1 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was 99.5.
Yeah.
Percent.
I mean, the one, I don't think it was like anything to worry about, but Silverstone with Lando taking the lead and staying in the lead for a while was like,
and everybody cheering. You'd be like, holy.
Well, and it's a home race for Lando too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was nice. But, I mean, once Max got his tires warmed up and he was ready, he was like, okay.
Exactly.
And he was gone. Like,
exactly.
he took off.
Unless somebody's going to take the lead in the 56th of 57 laps.
Yeah.
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 He's going to come through.
Yeah.
He's going to come through the pack or, you know, we need a Latifi.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically. That's 2 episodes with Latifi.
Maybe it might have to be a
Maybe
running
we'll get
theme.
him on the pod.
Maybe. We're going to have to bring in some Sofina Foods to lure him in.
Yes.
So, but yeah, okay. Max aside, one of the greatest F1 seasons of all time.
Yeah.
There's also Red Bull. Which, I mean, they built the best car by a mile. They did it with aero time restrictions, with all these penalties. And they had to pay a $7,000 or $7 million fine or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So with all these restrictions they had put on this season, and they basically just gave everybody the double bird.
Honestly, like it was a really good season for Red Bull. A lot of people found the season boring. Yeah, okay, after a while, like, they don't show Max on the screen anymore. You're kind of watching the back. But I think there's always something to be... They're not an underdog team by any means. No. But there's always something about breaking the records. Like, you know, you can say the same thing for, like, Tom Brady. Like, people don't want him to win, but they want him to win.
Well,
like, you know what I mean?
They want to see if it can be done.
Right, exactly. So... I think we all have to give respect where respect is due. And Red Bull and Max... earned, I think, everybody's respect.
Well, and probably. I mean, if we're going to say that basically, you know, you take Max out of the equation, congrats to Checo on winning the championship. For a poor performer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, everybody's gonna say it's the car.
Yeah.
But he had some drive. I mean, he won 2 races.
Yeah.
Which is more than anybody does in a career sometimes. He won 2 races. He had some good drives from the back. There were too many from the back because he qualified like crap half the season.
Yeah.
I think that was his biggest criticism.
Yeah.
Right.
Mexico crashing on first lap, his home race.
That was heartbreaking.
That was heartbreaking. I think everybody was like, this was his time to show. Yeah. And it was sad.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what he does this year. Mm-hmm. Can he, again, I don't want to say can he improve. I mean, can he improve on a Saturday? Basically, that's the only real question. Yeah. Because you know he can drive the car.
Yeah.
Right. He's proved it. He only had 2 or 3 DNFs this year. Obviously Mexico was one of them. Yeah. But he only had a couple DNFs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like it was a fairly good season, obviously for Red Bull on a whole. Right?
Yeah.
So
I think just in general, can Red Bull do it again?
We can get into that in our predictions.
Yeah.
But the short of it for me, I don't think it's can they do it again. I think it's can everybody catch up.
That's a fair way to look at it.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's a fair way to look at it because I would hope that the car doesn't get worse. Like, I hope they didn't mess it up, you know? Like...
Yeah.
Like, they tried something and it doesn't work is, like...
Okay, well...
That would be devastating.
Then think about this. Well, will they really work? How much are they actually going to work on this year's car?
Fair.
If they know that they're ahead so far.
Right.
Right? Like, they're miles ahead. I mean, again, at the end of it, they only won... not counting Vegas, it was a different track for everybody. Yeah. But he finished, I think, the last race, was it 5 seconds ahead or something like that?
Yeah.
So everybody was catching up.
Yeah.
But are they ahead enough that they can just make some tweaks?
Yeah.
And don't have to worry about it, and then just start working on 2026 or 2025.
2025.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we'll see what happens, and we are going to talk about predictions, not this episode, but
next episode.
But yeah,
it's hard not to get it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that's something to look out for. And again, I just think Red Bull did a really good job, and Max himself just did a really good job. Checo did a great job as well. He took a lot of flack this year.
Yeah. I think it was undeserved. I think it was I mean, when you compare him to Max,
Yeah.
right, and you compare the qualities of the car,
Yeah.
it's hard to, but okay, and this kind of segues into the next one. It's kind of like saying, you know, how often Lewis and George and Toto are saying it's such a crap car, but it's a car that finished in second.
They finished in second. It's like the most mind-blowing thing. Like when we got to the last few races, and it was like Ferrari and Aston Martin kind of fell off, which we'll talk about, but you know, Ferrari and Mercedes are fighting for second, and it was like, since when? Like they complained the entire time, and it just kind of like they just crept up on us.
Well, I think they were consistently, I mean, they didn't have a lot of finishes other than any DNFs. They didn't have a lot of finishes that were outside the points.
No, I mean, if you have both drivers finishing in the points, that's
But,
points for the team.
And they were consistently finishing. I mean, Lewis had a podium. They consistently finished in between at least 4 to 7.
Yeah.
Between the two drivers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they had the best consistent season of all the teams.
Yeah, I think they also did a lot better this year than they did in 2022.
100%.
2022 was just a disaster for them, which really sucks because coming off of 2021 and the drama.
Well, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot really at the
Yeah.
beginning of 2023.
Yeah.
Because they stuck with a crap design and only changed a third of the way through the season.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, both drivers were really struggling.
Yeah.
So maybe they could have more easily.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is it was interesting to hear George saying, the car feels good. And then Lewis was like, the car's shit. And then it was just like, okay, wait.
Yeah.
What's going on here? But I mean, I think clearly they did well.
His tone changed.
Yes.
Few races into the season.
Yeah.
I think because he had a better start than Lewis, if I remember correctly. And so I think that might have played a little into it a little bit of how much he liked the car.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to rock the boat, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, would you say, or do you think that, I mean, it's Lewis, but I was going to say, is Lewis, do you still think he's still the favorite on the team? Or like, is
100%.
he...
I don't think there's any doubt in that. I think they're still going to do what they can. One, he is still one of the best drivers on the grid. Okay, like it or not, he's still one of the best drivers on the grid, and he's a top 3 driver to me in the grid.
Yeah,
potential wise, right? And just quality. He's also the most expensive, second most, next to Max. But on that team, he is the most expensive. So I think they will take his input and take his consideration into it because they want him back.
Yeah,
I mean, he's got a 2-year contract, I think. So he's signed until 2025 or 2026. I believe 2025.
Yeah. I think so.
I don't have that in front of me, but I believe it's 2025. But they'll still, as long as he's willing to drive past 2025, I think they're going to do whatever they can to keep him through 2025. They want to keep both of them. It's the strongest driver pairing on the grid.
Yes.
Proven.
Yes,
I think
they're good. I don't know how friendly they are with each other,
but quality-wise, I think their friendship was repaired after the break somehow, some way.
Yeah,
they seemed more harmonious.
Yeah.
After the break.
Yeah.
Before the break, it was kind of like, well, we're fighting for each other, and you look at some of the team radios, and George is complaining, well, let me through, I'm faster, and Hamilton's telling him, well, if he wants to go through, tell him to pass me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so there was a little bit of a pissing match going on.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think towards the end, I think it was Singapore where George was going to be third. Yeah. When he crashed out in the last lap there, Lewis was like, is he going to do this? Yeah. He was like, is he going to do this? Yeah. Like, so you could see him not being like, screw it, I'm going to pass him. He was like, can George do this? And he was kind of giving it to him.
Yeah.
But so you did see the friendship.
Well, and you could tell too, like Toto had to play dad.
Yeah.
Right? He had to kind of break him up and
Lewis just
sit
drive.
There was a couple times where he had to tell each of them, just like, okay, stop worrying about your teammates, stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just drive the car and figure it out, right?
We know the car is shit. Just drive the car.
Yeah.
No, it was good. I mean, and again, they finished second.
Oh, and he even had to call from wherever the hell he was at home
he wasn't
in Austria.
At the race.
But Who put? I mean, I know he's a team principal and he owns it. He has shares in it, and he's a billionaire and whatever. But who? Like, you don't hear Lawrence Stroll coming on the radio and be like, "Listen, guys, shut the f up.
Yeah.
Just keep driving."
That was total dad mode.
Yeah. If you couldn't be there with a broken arm, then stay out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like that was.
That must have really.
Oh, he was pissed.
No, but that must have really messed both drivers up. Just to hear that over the radio,
hear
like,
the voice.
Where are you?
You're like, Dad? Like, where are you? Yeah, no. Yeah, I think they were consistent. Both drivers consistent. Other teams would have one finish in the points, one DNF, one not finish, or finish out of the points. So I think they were the most consistent team, and I mean, hopefully they can turn it on and we see these competitions again happening. And
I think you're going to see a dramatic change in the car this year.
I hope so. For them, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Toto promised that everybody had a target on their backs, and
he also promised an eighth world championship, which don't know. Well, who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
I mean, there's
always. I mean, how long is he willing to drive for? Is he going to be the next Fernando?
Yeah, how old is Lewis?
36, 37.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, so he's got Fernando's over the
couple of years over. Yeah, he's a couple of years more.
Yeah. All right, so then I guess our third place team, which is probably going to be something we talk about every year, and everybody will talk about every year, is Ferrari.
Well, I think you can't have, especially after 2022 and how much of a disaster everything was in 2022. I think they're under the microscope. You're not going to get away from 2023, which wasn't as bad.
Yeah.
However, I mean, when you have your drivers making strategy calls and not being able to see all the data, Carlos keeping Lando 0.8 behind him so he can get DRS, so he's making sure that nobody's passing him.
Yeah.
Right.
And the pit wall not even picking up on what he was doing. That was what was interesting too, is like, guys, you see what he's doing. Like you should, of all people, to see what he's doing. But I mean, Ferrari's Ferrari. I don't remember there being that many questionable, like box, box. But
there was at the beginning.
In the beginning,
there was at the beginning a couple of those, a couple of reliability issues again. Which really shot them in the foot. Like usually we're used to seeing, okay, we have some reliability issues. We see Charles pushing it too much and he's in a wall somewhere. Even if it's on a practice run. But
or formation lap. That was Carlos, I think. I don't remember. It was Charles.
It was Charles. Yeah. That was Charles.
On the formation lap.
But yeah, so usually it's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
But I mean, this year it was him taking pole. How many times was it?
13, I think.
Was it that many?
I think it was 13, and none of them converted.
Oh, that's even worse.
None of them converted to.
That just goes back to he really is the victim. Oh my god,
he's a victim.
Anyways, if you haven't heard that, go back to the last episode and listen to it. It's just a shame.
Yeah.
So, do you think that this year then, or last year, sorry, who was your better driver out of the two of them?
Oh, it's hard because you had one that was consistent getting pole on a Saturday, but then you had one that was just such a good, that was Charles. And then I just thought Carlos drove really well. He didn't always finish on the podium. He didn't finish very high, but I think he showed himself really well this year.
Yeah.
I still think Charles is their golden boy.
Yeah.
They've got so much money into him. But I think it's going to be, I think I read that they both have 50-50 say in the car.
I heard about that,
year.
yeah. He has more say of what's going on.
Yeah.
And he's had more time early on as well.
Yeah. So
Carlos.
I think this year they might be a little bit more even. Maybe. Hopefully.
Well, I think that's. I think this going into this year, seeing how they do, it might flip flop. You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, Carlos was the only other race winner that wasn't in a Red Bull. It was just fantastic for the sport in general, but for Ferrari's hopes, because you can actually see what the car can do when you actually put a strategy in place, have a good reliability. But the way Charles drove that car after the break was, I think, for a shorter amount of time, was still better than the overall Carlos all year.
Yeah.
Other than his race win in Singapore.
Right. Yeah. Right. I would agree with that.
I mean, his drive in Las Vegas, and that was probably the overtake of the year for me. Was Charles.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get that year later on.
Talk about that.
But yeah.
I mean, I wasn't expecting them to be finishing the way that they were in the beginning.
I wasn't expecting them to start the way they started, and then they just completely flip-flopped. It was like...
Because at the beginning, like the first few races was Max, Alonso, and Checo in whatever order on the podium.
Well, yeah, Max finished,
Max number one.
I think the first 4 races it flip-flopped Max and Checo.
Yeah.
And then Alonso was always in there, whether he was in a P2 or a P3. Yeah. And driving great. Like, he was pushing that car. It didn't seem like he was having really any kind of struggles with the car. It was driving well.
I was watching the TV on the race
track. That was Australia or Miami. I think it was Miami actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's telling, he's like, oh yeah, good move by Lance. Who actually, for not being not being my favorite driver, he was driving it pretty well. He was in the top 10. He was getting points, and it looked like they were going to have, at least third in the championship.
It looked
if
like
they kept going the way they were going.
Until Lance decided he wants to play tennis.
Well, yeah. Yeah. There was that. There was the incident in the pushing incident.
Yeah.
In the paddock where he was just having
derailed there for a while.
He fell off the map completely.
Yeah.
Well, he actually didn't fall off the map because everyone was very aware.
Where Lance was.
But he wasn't on the track.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just it was so weird to see how they can have such a great start, and then they bring upgrades, and then they're gone.
And then
they're not finishing in points. They're not finishing races. Right. I mean, Alonso's still in the top 10. Sometimes he's sniffing around 4 or 5, but he's more likely around that 6 to 10 range. It was.
But he still had good races. He just wasn't finishing like higher than, like you said, 5, 6, 7. Like
he was driving well.
Yeah, he was driving really well.
But it was the car just for whatever reason took a step back. I don't know how that works. I don't know how you upgrade and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you test these upgrades ahead of time?
Yeah.
So yeah, there was that. I mean, Lance was really nowhere other than the first 6, 7 races. Maybe he was, doing well. People were not surprised.
Yeah.
Because the car was good.
Yeah.
Right. Even if it was a third Red Bull on the podium.
Yeah.
Like Checo said.
I think this car obviously definitely fits Alonso.
Well, yeah.
Way more than the Alpine. So
I think the team.
Yeah, I was gonna say the team is teammate maybe. Yeah. So I mean, it was a really good season for them, and then they just fell off. Like they really just disappeared in the after. Is it after summer?
No, I think wasn't it just before the summer they got their upgrades? It was either just before or after this, like the race of coming back from the summer break. I can't remember exactly what date they did bring. Was it Austria? Either way, it was the upgrade. It was their upgrade package. Right after that, it wasn't driving the same for whatever reason. We didn't really get a much of an answer as to why. Like there were no specific reliability issues.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a power unit or anything, but it was just.
And I mean, then you have the opposite with McLaren.
Yeah.
Started off horribly, thinking it was going to be a really good season for them. Started off horribly. And then
they weren't qualifying well. They were starting in 16, 17, 13, whatever.
And then.
Which, I mean, even still starting at that position, you can see Lando, like how well he can race.
Yeah.
Right? Like how he was taking corners. He was still trying to pass people. He just couldn't do it because the car wasn't capable of doing it.
Yeah.
But he was still racing well. You could still see it in him.
Yeah.
Right. And even Oscar, right? You could see the talent. And it was there were comments about how, as bad as that car is at the moment, you could see how well his drive was going.
Yeah, I think they're a good pairing to two young.
To me,
drivers.
they're the second strongest pairing on the grid.
Yeah.
Right. The potential's there. I think Oscar just needs a little more maturing.
Yeah.
In the car, and not to say that he's not. He's not. It's just, you know what I mean. Like, he needs to get more of a feel in the season.
Yeah.
In the car.
I think the sprint win for him was a big boost of confidence. You wouldn't tell by his facial
No,
expression.
by his just straight
but
demeanor.
But I think it was a good boost of, like, especially for your rookie season.
Yeah, yeah.
And like the drama leading to him getting onto McLaren, Ricardo leaving, all that. It was kind of a downer for him in the beginning. Well, for me, it would be a downer.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like nobody wanted you on the team except for the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they did their upgrades and they just were killing it at the
How
end.
pissed do you think he is? He was at first when he leaves Alpine, and then all of a sudden Ryan Reynolds, Pat Mahomes, everybody else is buying into Alpine. He's like, I could have been with all these people.
Oscar strikes me as the guy that
Probably
doesn't care.
No, probably not.
doesn't
Probably
care.
not.
Like Lando's probably like, hey, can I go to Alpine?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
all
it's
these
definitely more up Gasly's alley, but
Yes. Yeah,
and
for
Ocon.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, no. Waving signs in the background. I don't know, it's
The
weird.
producers here are great. Love them.
But yeah, no, it's amazing season for McLaren. I mean, to finish where they did in fourth.
Yeah.
After everybody was thinking they were probably going to finish
They
less
were.
than Williams. I mean,
Yeah. I think they thought that too in the beginning. One thing I noticed about both McLaren drivers is that they're very down on themselves, especially if they don't race or not even race, like qualify well. They're very hard on themselves in their post-race, post-quali interviews.
but I think that only helps themselves, right?
Right.
They're very aware of where they went
Yes,
wrong,
yeah.
right? Which, in general, F1 drivers are very they know which corner they did
Yeah.
wrong on what lap. Like,
Which is mind-blowing.
Yeah. To remember all those things, and then they'll remember it the next year.
Yes. Yes. And like they remember each other's stats. Like it's just weird. Like
Yeah. But I think they need to be. I think that's what makes them as good as they are.
yeah.
Right? That they're very aware. Then they're very aware of it lap to lap, and they know they're not going to make that same mistake. They know what their braking points are, their turns, their racing lines are going to be, and where they went wrong in the last lap, and what, how to fix it. But it's just been it's been interesting to see Lando mature.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And then how well, I mean, one of the best rookie seasons ever,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, I would say.
By Oscar, especially where it finished with 97 points, I think it was.
Yeah.
From starting from shit.
Yeah. And like he was going toe to toe with the Alonsos. He was going toe to toe with Max in certain
Oh yeah, there was
corners.
no
Like,
intimidation. It was just
he was like, I've got a car. It works. I'm going to drive it.
I deserve to be here just like anybody else.
Yeah. And so I think he did a really good job. I think their driver pairing is going to be one to watch.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think I hope for McLaren they have another really awesome season.
I mean, not if you think that Lando's going to elsewhere, but
I mean, well, he'll be there for this.
till 2025. Well,
yeah. I hope Lando gets his win. He needs a win.
I mean, I think he's going to. I think
This is the year.
I think the car will be there. I think it'll be better than last year. I think they're going to be pushing second or third next year. And I think he will get, under the right circumstances, he's going to get that win.
Yeah.
Right?
I think,
And race circumstances being maybe Red Bull's not so dominant, or, Max ends up losing one this year. Losing the back end at some point.
Penalty for
on
Max.
that last lap, going for the fastest lap when he doesn't need to.
Exactly.
He just
I mean, that's Max for you.
Yeah.
All right. So we wanted to talk about our individual favorite moments of the year.
We didn't talk about
What did we miss? Oh,
the
right.
the AlphaTauri scandal.
We didn't.
Scandal, not scandal. I mean, the highly touted Nick DeVries. You know, getting that AlphaTauri seat alongside Yuki. All the talk about how he's gonna dethrone Yuki as the top.
Yeah.
I mean, the top Red Bull or now Racing Bulls driver. Then it just amounted to absolutely nothing.
I mean, it sounds bad, but it was almost like I don't even really remember him on the track.
I do not either. I do. It wasn't until I started watching back some of the races from last year where you see like he had nothing.
Yeah.
He had no real defense.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the opposite of where Piastri was. Like maybe he was intimidated by being in that position. If you told me that it was, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. I mean, I know in years past, like Yuki said he really looked up to like Gasly as a teammate. So maybe there just wasn't the same connection that they had. So like,
it didn't seem like that.
No.
You look at all the interviews, you look at like their social
separate.
Media.
Yeah.
It's just like Yuki's like, he just wants to have some fun. He's a little bit shy.
Yeah.
And DeVries is just like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
Like,
so, I mean, do we think it was fair, warranted by AlphaTauri to get rid of him?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, yes. In the season, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't even, there weren't even little sparks of like greatness or potential or improvement. Like it wasn't like, he had this, he had some bad luck, or he was doing this and I could see what he was trying to do. At least he's going for it. You didn't see anything.
And I think what also proved that point was that when when Daniel came in.
Daniel came back, yeah.
And then was gone. But when Daniel came in, he kind of did a little bit, but he's getting used to a car. I feel like we all knew he was coming back. But when Liam got in the car, he was doing everything.
Yeah.
Like he was just, it was like, okay, maybe they should keep him in the car instead of Danny Rick. Like
I think I don't want to. No, I don't.
I mean,
don't think
they wouldn't do that.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Not after. I mean, Ricardo. The reason he's back is because he posted a time that was better than Checo's.
Yeah.
In testing or qualifying or whatever, like qualifying lap. That was better than Checo. And that's why, I mean, Helmut Marko's going to be looking at that and be like, just licking his lips, right?
I think that's what happened, probably.
Yeah, and so he's probably telling
villain, by the way.
What? Yeah.
Helmut Marko.
Yeah. That's one we missed. We'll throw that one maybe at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think it was warranted to bring Danny in, and when Danny's got, you're not going to bring DeVries back and be like, hey, by the way, sorry, like you're not going to go knock on your ex-girlfriend's house, right? With chocolates and flowers.
Well,
like,
exactly.
We made a mistake.
Sorry.
We're really drunk.
Sorry.
But yeah, you gave Danny the opportunity, so I think it was fair to bring him back.
Yeah.
Over Lawson. Does Lawson deserve a seat over some of the drivers coming up this year? I think 100% he does. There was no seat to be had. I get it.
No.
But yeah, I think he was very deserving of a seat.
Yeah. I think with also driver contracts, a lot of them, and we're going to talk about this on another podcast, but driver contracts, a lot of them are ending in 2024. Yeah. So I can see if Liam continues to progress and, do what he was doing, I think there very well could be a seat that opens up for him.
I expect him back unless there's some kind of, some
crazy
phenom that comes through or whatever. I expect to see him back 100%.
Yeah.
I think if it wasn't for contracts that they have now and nobody wanting to actually buy them out and the length of the contracts there are, I think he would have been, he would have finished the year there and he would have been in the next year. But that's just the way it goes. But otherwise, I think it's.
Sorry, Nick DeVries, but he's in.
I'm not that sorry. He's in WEC, isn't he? Is he now doing?
Yeah.
Or is he back in Formula E?
He's also going to Harvard.
I think he stopped. I think he was at Harvard as a guest speaker or something. But I also think he was enrolled. I don't know. A guest speaker. I don't know what he's speaking on. I could be completely wrong with that. He could have been going, but now he's driving again. I don't know.
Yeah.
So who knows? He won't be back in Formula 1.
No, he will not. I don't think even like for my own like dignity, I don't think I could go back. I mean, the money might bring me back, but like
money over dignity, please. I mean, come on.
Okay, moral.
People do a hell of a lot less
for a lot less too. Yeah, I get it. Okay, fair point. But okay, so individual favorite moments from the year. I have mine written down.
Well, I said it earlier, so I'll say it now. Probably my number one moment of the year was Charles's overtake on.
That's mine. One of mine.
Charles's overtake on Perez at the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Just to have the balls to do that on a slippery track, unknown, fastest straight. That was a tight corner.
I was going to say the corner coming off the straight.
I don't think anybody was expecting him to do it there, where we did there, especially such late braking on the inside. Yeah, I thought that was my top moment. That was an edge of my seat moment, which. Yeah,
because you saw him coming, and you're like, he's not gonna do that. He's not gonna do it, and he did it. No, I thought he was gonna do it, but I didn't think he would get it.
But that was the last corner.
The last,
so he had to do it there. He was doing
there was no other.
He wasn't beating Checo to the line yet.
Yeah, there was no other opportunity. So that I had two. So that was one of mine, and my second was I had my two guys. Carlos was my number one. And not even him, I mean, him winning, but I think it was just the tactics of the whole thing. And again, I think I said it before, like just the team not even picking up what he was doing and him just being like, I got this. Like, I don't need you to talk to me. I know what I'm doing. And then it was also kind of nice to see, it was former teammates.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, is he actually working with Lando right now? And, him ending up winning and Lando coming in second, and George went into the wall on the last lap, which helped Lando secure that second spot. But I just thought that was a moment you could really see what we were both saying on episode 1 is just why the sport is so good.
Yeah,
you saw someone's brain working, and I thought that was awesome. That's mine.
Yeah. The one for me would be not a great moment, just best because I just really enjoyed it. The early stoppage in qualifying at Brazil, and how awkward.
Yeah.
Lance Stroll. I mean, first of all, Leclerc afraid of the lightning, but the thunder. But Stroll just looked so out of place.
Yeah.
So out of place being there, like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Who do I talk to?
Yeah.
Max and Leclerc looking at him like, why are you here?
They were just like,
that was one of my greatest moments of the year. The other one is Vegas. Not the whole Vegas weekend. I think the whole Vegas weekend was a disaster.
Yeah.
Just what they did to the fans after the red flag, how they had to kick them out and still continue on with that after they've paid hundreds of dollars to be there. And then they just offered them a gift certificate to the F1 store. Like, hey, by the way, just give us more money.
Yeah.
Which was just such a kick in the nuts.
You just paid $2,000 for these tickets, but here's 10% off.
Yeah. Here's something that you're going to have to spend money for. Because whatever we give you, you can't afford just with this on our store.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was just, and thank God for Max for sticking up and like, I think that's just the stupidest thing. Yeah. Just calling him out, I thought was beautiful. It was also a disaster when you get to the other practice session, or it actually was FP1. Actually, that's why they shut down.
Yeah.
Carlos with the drain cover.
Yeah.
And then giving him.
And then it was his fault.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They give him a 10-place grid penalty because you didn't. And fine, there's a lot of drain covers. You can't check them all. It happens. I get it. I'm not blaming anybody.
Yeah.
You do as many track walks as you can do. Things happen. You miss things. Great. Can we not just be thankful that he wasn't hurt after just destroyed his floor? This giant hunk of metal. And just be like, okay, great, sorry.
Yeah.
You already have to pay to fix your car. But hey, we're going to give you a 10-place grid penalty for our F up.
And on a new track too.
Well, that's what I mean.
Like if it was like Spa or something, you're kind of like, whoa. But like a brand new track, like you guys just finished it last week.
It's a street circuit. These things happen, right? Like, you're gonna have to check things. It's not like it's an actual circuit where the drainage is all done. Like that's the only thing we have to think about is just this race once a year or a couple times a year, depending what races they have on it.
Yeah.
But like you screwed up.
Yeah.
You screwed up.
Yeah.
Don't give them the penalty.
No, it wasn't fair.
No.
And people tried to like explain it away, and it was like, no, it's just not.
It doesn't
fair.
make any sense. It does not make any sense. But other than that, the previous 2 days, I thought it was a great weekend. I mean, a great race. It was actually one of my favorite races of the year. I mean, Spa is always going to be one of my top ones, especially with the rain this year. It was ridiculous.
It was. What I thought was really funny was how much Max complained about Vegas and thought it was like, dude, we don't need this show, like all of this stuff, whatever.
But
and
then
he
wrong.
like wins and he was like, this is great. And he wore like Elvis singing in the car. Like,
he's not wrong. The weekend was terrible. And especially for them. They paraded them around like show horses all weekend.
Not
everybody.
For that at all. So it was just so funny. He complained about the entire thing and then
And one of my favorite memes actually came out from that. And we'll talk about it afterwards. But I thought like the high speed was great.
Yeah.
You were always on the edge of your seat because everybody was a little slippery. And
nobody
so you're like,
knew what tires to put
what's going to happen? Like somebody's ending up in a wall. We're going to have a Latifi situation. It's going twice in an episode. We should make that a drinking game. But it's that was also one of my top moments of the year.
It was good.
It was that race.
It was good.
All right, so also now we're going to move into our favorite memes and team radios from the year. I have a couple of each, I think.
I think you do as well. First.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, because your
so
list is
we'll stick on the topic of Vegas.
Okay.
So one of my favorite memes of, well, I guess kind of meme. Checo with Bruce Buffer. Did you see that?
No.
So there was, it was all over Instagram and
when
and all
he
that.
walks up.
Yeah. So for some reason, and this is what I mean about them being paraded around like show horses. So they're gonna do their drive around. Everybody gets in a car and they're waving at the crowd or whatever. But they had Bruce Buffer, announcer for the UFC, come out and announce them like they're UFC fighters, and everybody else comes. George comes out, whatever. And Checo comes out and he says Checo Perez, and he comes out and he just stands next to him like, where do I go? It was the most awkward moment of the whole year for me, and I love it. It was just like I don't belong here. I don't.
Who, Bruce or Checo?
Oh, Bruce is the king of Vegas. That's the 100% Checo.
That's true. But I also feel like a lot of the drivers probably have no idea who Bruce Buffer is.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I'm
sure they do. But that's what I mean. Like, it was just reminiscent of the whole weekend. Like they had the thing where they were all on a podium before and they're all waving. Great. Yeah. Then they're doing all this press that's
no, they
just
were
fanfare, which is, it wasn't even really fanfare. It was just like, hey, Vegas and F1.
Yeah.
And then and so that just that was just like a summary of that weekend.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, mine's a radio, which it was just George. Like George in Monza, the team is telling him to manage his tires, and he's like, I'm not sure if you can see, but I've got a car up my ass. Yeah. And it was just like,
which is I wasn't expecting from George.
No, and that's the thing. Like usually he's like, oh bollocks, it's raining. Like it's never actually cussing. And it was just like the funniest, most sarcastic, like, thanks. But I'm
no kidding. Like, I am driving. Thanks, bud.
But it was just great. And again, you just don't expect it from, like, you expect that from Max. You expect that from Yuki. Yeah. But it was just so unexpected and just hilarious to me.
I had another, Steve's thinking of the George theme, the intro to the F1. Where George in his Jesus Christ pose.
Oh, the pose.
I want to know, was it his idea to do that, or was it the media? He seemed pretty comfortable in it.
He did seem comfortable, but I feel like they probably have all of them do like not a funny pose, but like they have them all do like little things, and then they just like screwed George.
Yeah, like that's the one they picked. Yeah, like that's the one. Like
yeah.
That's just like the string bean. Like,
Yeah.
let's get him out there and just, let's show his weight. Like, he's not a basketball player. Like, he's not holding a basketball in either hand.
Yeah.
And
And I think it's funny that like all the drivers are also in on the
yeah.
joke.
But
Like, that's what makes it
but
funny,
even
too.
George's like he
Yeah.
leaned into it.
Oh, yeah.
He did it himself a couple times,
Yeah.
which good on him.
Yeah.
You're a proper lad, George.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was that.
That was good. I don't know what other memes.
It's one of
Or
my favorite
radios.
team. Again, it's George. I mean, it's just the George Love Fest. It's
Yeah.
the one where he's coming around, and I forget which race it is. He's like, "Is it raining, or is this just sweat in my helmet?"
Confirm, no rain. Like,
Yeah, he's like, "Nope, it's just your sweat."
Yeah.
It's like, "Okay, thanks."
yeah, like, and again, he leaned into it.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
just,
There was
Sorry,
that.
guys.
There was a couple team radios. Obviously, there's Carlos. Carlos, the 0.8 behind. We've talked about it already.
Yeah.
Just giving his pit wall
Yeah.
shit for just being stupid and not realizing
Yeah.
what's going on.
What's going on.
And then same thing with Charles. Same thing. He's like asking, you're in a fight for a championship, and he's asking what the gap is so he can slow down
Yeah.
to keep them away from the points, right?
he's like,
and
thanks. I like,
Yeah.
just tell me how much it is. Like,
Yeah,
I
can
think
I-
a lot of like the smart ass, like remarks on on the radios are always going to be like the best ones.
oh yeah.
Like they're just always going to be funny.
And since we're not talking too much about Max because there really wasn't much positive. There was too much positive. Excuse me. Was Max's complaints this year?
Yeah.
Well, the team radio one is their relationship, him and GP.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that was.
we need to get GP on the podcast.
I know. I think we need to get a podcast out first before we
That
start
too.
getting some.
That too.
Yeah. But yeah.
GP's a victim.
Oh,
He is
100%.
the
100%. I mean, he is the battered wife.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
No, he needs some counseling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
But
I'm
apparently they have a really good relationship.
They do.
Which you have to.
You have to, yeah. You can't talk to somebody the way they talk to each
Yeah.
other and not have a good relationship. But yeah, their radios together were great. But when you're so far ahead that your
Yeah.
biggest complaint is, hey guys, it's a little windy out here today. Can I get my spring jacket?
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
I
he could have spun out
Yeah.
and still just lollygagged it back into the and still won.
Yeah. I mean, I also they had one where Max was asking the team to do something, and he was like, well, I'm just going to do it anyways. And then
I think that
he
was going
failed
for-
at it, and GP was like, did it work for you?
Well, that was in qualifying. I think it was when he finished 10th. He
Yeah.
did the 10th on qualifying. I think it was.
He's like, did it work?
Was it Miami?
I don't
He's like,
remember where.
he's like, but we should have done it this way or
Yeah.
whatever, but some other way.
Yeah.
He says, okay, well, you tell me what strategies and everything else you want. We'll do it. It's no problem.
Yeah.
Well,
They're just, I think you just have to just let it flow off.
yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do?
I don't think I had any other best memes or team radios. I think that was pretty. I mean, we didn't hear a lot from Yuki, which I was expecting more of.
Yeah, I know. We
It was
didn't get a lot
disappointing,
from
no.
him.
Unless they're just censoring him.
Yeah.
Or he was worried this year about DeVries
Yeah.
and he was just.
Yeah. I mean, Yuki's were always funny, but I mean, he was just so angry.
I know, which I miss. He
Yeah.
seems like he's in a better place. I think
He's in a better
Daniel's made him a little too happy.
Yeah.
And we don't have the same Yuki.
And I mean, the car is doing kind of what he wants it to.
No, I think it was terrible. Oh, that's the other thing we got to talk about in this review is, and we'll get it back into a little bit more of it next week when we do our ranking show. But
Oh, yeah.
Albon pushing Williams into 7th alone.
Yeah.
He had, I think they had 27 points or 29 points.
Oh, Logan. I was like,
Yeah. Who's the other guy? Who's
the other
exactly,
guy?
exactly.
Latifi.
I think he got 1 point. He came in 10th once, and all the other points were Albon. I mean, I really want to see him. He's another one, just with Lando, who's actually matured as a driver,
Yeah.
and you can see it now. He's not, forcing it. He's actually letting the drive come to him.
Yeah.
It seems right.
Yeah.
And so he made the extra amount of millions for Williams that probably exceeds his own contract.
Probably.
I think he's only
actually.
making three million
Yeah.
this year, and so we probably made Williams an extra 7 or 8
Yeah.
or 9. I don't know exactly. I don't have it in front of me right now,
Yeah.
but he made quite a bit of money for Williams just by himself. Driving in a Williams.
In Montreal is where he had that really good, like, force.
I believe it was. Is that the one where he was backing up the pack and was just keeping everybody behind him?
I think so.
He was backing up the midfield and it was just, nobody could get past him. He was just a brick
just
wall.
Messing with everybody. He was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But yeah. No, I think...
Actually, so that'll be another one of my favorite moments this year, is just seeing how well he did in such a terrible car.
In a Williams.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to drive in the worst car on the track.
I don't think either of us could handle the worst car on the track.
Even in like the two-seater ones, I probably couldn't handle that.
Oh no! Have you seen that video where somebody's in the back of an F1 car while somebody's actually driving it to the limit?
No.
And their head is just flying all over the place. No. Yeah, no, it's just ridiculous. We would crash on turn one.
Not happening.
All right, so I think that's episode 2. That's our 2023 recap review, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, next week we're going to be getting into a little bit of our driver and constructor rankings, how we individually rank them and see how they stack up against each other's list. Yeah.
So I think right now we just want to remind you where you can find us. So that would be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube,
Google Podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to remember that one, but I think actually Google Podcasts is leaving mid 2024 from what I've been told. But anyways, all those platforms, wherever you can find us, like it, subscribe, follow, comment.
We're on Instagram too.
We're on Instagram. There is a Twitter as well, actually.
Yes.
Which I created, and we'll keep updated on all the Twitter stuff.
And on Instagram, we're going to do like lots of like good social media stuff and more interactive stuff. So join us there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, comment, follow, tell your friends, your F1
Tell
friends.
everybody. Tell people you don't know. Just yell at people when you're not, when you're just walking down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, as
Tell
long
them
as you
to
don't
grab
mind.
a fresh set of tires.
Yeah, that might get people in trouble. That might
tires.
just
of tires.
Yeah, don't follow all of that advice.
All right, well, we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, see you on the next one. Yeah.